Hey folks, welcome back to Mark Kelly Farm. We are going to do some canning today, so stick around and we'll show you what we're going to can. Hey, at the end of this video, go down in the description and click on the link for a special surprise. We have 3 boxes of peaches from Colorado. Every year, the local Lions Club here in town does a fundraiser where they order peaches from Colorado and they bring them in for people that want to can some peaches. And they call you and let you know when they arrive, and you go down and pick them up. Yesterday was the day. Now, we didn't order any peaches ahead of time because you got to do a pre-order. My cousins all ordered peaches, so I'm canning some peaches for them. And then I guess there was some excess, so my mom went down and got me a box of peaches also. So Kelly and I have been canning peaches today, and we have 2 more boxes to go. Alright, the first step in canning these peaches is to get your big boiling water bath canner out. And then we got another pot to heat the syrup in. And we're going to go with a medium syrup on these peaches, which is about 5 cups of water to 2 cups of sugar. And then to the water also we add the fruit fresh material, which is basically, I believe, ascorbic acid or something like that, which keeps the peaches a nice yellow color, doesn't let them turn brown. So we're doing 10 quarts at a time, and the reason we're not using our brand new electronic canner is because you cannot water bath quart jars in those canners because you can't get the water high enough in the pot, in the cooker. So that's why we're using our big canner, and we can do more jars in here because one of those lugs of peaches does about 10 quarts of peaches in here. So Kelly's making the syrup and we're heating our pots up. Kelly's washing up lids and jars and getting everything ready. We're happy to have her here this weekend so we can get this done. So I'm going to go start processing peaches. So we got our clean jars. We grab a peach first and we're going to peel it. Now you can peel these in boiling water and then shock them just like you do tomatoes, but I find it's just as fast to peel these by hand. And we also slice them too while we're doing it. And then you're going to peel it basically like an apple. You just come around this thing with your knife, staying right under the edge of that skin. See where the knife blade is? And you just keep going around. And the longer you do it, the better, faster you'll get at it. And it takes about 3 peaches per jar, thereabouts. So once you get your peach peeled like this, take your knife, score it top to bottom like that. And then we're going to come right through that score that we did from the bottom of the pit all the way to the top. And then you got 2 nice slices. Slice it right into your jar. And then you have that edge that you can slice slices off of. So you just go around that pit all the way around like that. And you get nice slices down in your jar. And then usually I'll just cut this nub off the bottom down here that's left. But that's how you do that. You get nice slices down in your jar. You want to make sure you pack them down in there pretty good. Otherwise your jars will end up half empty. So we're going to continue on and I'll show you what we're going to do once we get this jar full. Now once you get your jar full, and orient those peaches in there so you can get the most in the jar, because being raw pack, they're going to shrink a little bit, and you're going to get a little bit of liquid on the bottom of the jar once these are canned. But that's just a setback of raw pack. But I like raw pack better because the peaches come out a little firmer in my opinion. So we got our jar full. So we're going to take 1.5 teaspoons of our like fruit fresh stuff and put it right on the top of that jar. And this is the brand we're using. It comes from Ball. And then we take this over to the tap, and we got real good well water here, and we fill this with cold water up to the top. And what that's going to do is going to keep these peaches from turning brown while they're waiting to have the syrup put in them and put them in the canner. So we're going to let these sit on the counter until we get all 10 of our jars packed. Now when we used to do this when I was a kid, there was actually 3 processes we had to do when we were getting the peaches prepared. We would peel them, and then we would pit them, and then we would slice them. So it took a little bit longer, and that's why I do it this way now, because once you get your peach peeled, you can immediately go to slicing, and you don't have the pitting process. You just slice them right around that pit. You're doing kind of a curved slice like that. And it eliminates the pitting process, because that used to take forever to get those pits out. So we're just cutting them right out. Now you also want to be using firm peaches. You almost want to see just a touch of green right here on the top, but these, they don't have much green. You can see it just a little bit, but these are still nice firm peaches. If the peach goes to mush in your hand while you're peeling it, those peaches are a little too far along to be canning. It can still be done, but your end product is going to be turned to mush in the jar, and it's not going to be very appealing, because like if you make a peach cobbler, you're not going to have like whole peach slices in there. You're just going to have a big pan of mush. And I don't care for that myself. It doesn't change the flavor any, but the texture is just not right. You should have a nice whole slice of peach in there that you can bite into. And that's why we do that. Now we talked earlier about hot pack and cold pack. And if you haven't canned before, I'll tell you what that difference is. Cold pack, obviously, we're putting these peaches into this jar cold. And then we'll put a hot syrup, when we're ready, into the jar. And then we'll put them in the canner. And the whole canner takes a while to heat up. Once it comes to boiling, we'll cook them for a certain period of time, and then pull them out. It's 35 minutes at our elevation once the pot gets back to a rolling boil. Now hot pack, you would put these peaches right into a cooking vessel with your cold syrup, and then you'd heat it up and cook those peaches for a little bit of time. I'm not sure exactly how long. I'd have to look at the book. But then you're packing the peaches into the jar. They're already boiling hot in the syrup. It doesn't take quite as long to get up to temperature, and I believe the hot water bath canning time is a little bit shorter. But there's pros and cons. The pros to a cold pack is I believe you get a firmer end product when you're done. The cons with a cold pack is these peaches can only fit in the jar so well when we're packing them cold, and we stuff them in there as best we can, get them as tight as we can. But after it's cooked, you're going to get a little bit of juice here on the bottom. Your peaches are going to kind of float in the jar. When they're hot packed and they're partially cooked when they go in the jar, they pack in there a lot tighter, and you'll get a lot more peaches, it seems like, in the jar, and you won't get that juice on the bottom that doesn't have any peaches in it. And we'll show you what that looks like. So here's the jars that we did earlier this morning, and you can see the peaches don't go all the way to the bottom, because once they're cooked, they float to the top a little bit. They'll sink down a little bit later after they've been sitting a while and get kind of an equilibrium with the moisture in the peaches. But that's what they kind of look for a cold pack. I think we're going to do the last batch hot pack so we can show you the difference. Now I'll share some history with you because you know how much I like history. Now the people, the poor people, the peasants that used to work for the rich people in their kitchens, they would peel, when they were peeling peaches and potatoes and apples, they would do a real deep cut on their peel. The reason being, at the end of the day, this is what they took home to their family. They would take the scraps from the rich person's kitchen home, and they would make pies or jellies or whatever out of these skins. They'd put them in a pot with some boiling water and cook them down, because these peach skins are edible if you wash them. I never used to peel peaches. I would just wash them and eat the whole skin and everything. If you wash them, that fuzz comes off of them. But back in the day, that's what they did with apple peels, potato peels. They would take that stuff home and feed their family with it. So they would always cut it real deep. Now this may seem like a lot of waste over here in this pot, but the skins are fairly thin. If you can see, I'm not leaving a lot on that skin. So it's not as big of a waste as you see, and all of this goes out to the chickens, so they really enjoy that. Now if we wanted to be really frugal about this, we would have washed these peaches ahead of time, get all that fuzz off the skins, and then we would take this stuff here and we do like they did back in the day. We cover it with just enough water to cover the peels, and we would boil that down, make it like a thick syrup, and then you could make jelly out of that, peach jelly. You would put it, after you cooked it down, you'd put it in like a food mill and run it through there, and that would separate out all any of the skins that were left, and you'd get like a pure peach juice, and they would add sugar to that and pectin if they needed to, and you could make peach jelly out of the skins that normally get thrown out. Now another good practice is, say you're at the end of the year, you're coming up on peach season again, and you still have some peaches in the pantry from last year, and you needed some peach jam. You would just take one of these jars, or however many you wanted, out of the pantry, kind of drain the syrup out of them, put them in a sauce pot, add some sugar. Normally with fresh fruit you'd add about an equal amount of sugar as you have fruit, but being these are canned in sugar syrup, you wouldn't need to add that much. And you would just cook that down. If you wanted a smoother jam, you could puree it with like a stick blender in the pot, or I like kind of a chunky jam, so I wouldn't do that. Just cook the fruit down and you'll still have some chunks in your jam. And that's a good way to make use of your leftover fruit in the root cellar when the New Year's fruit is ready to can. You can utilize that. We do the same thing with meat. If you've got more meat coming and you got meat left in your freezer, you can make jerky and sausage and whatever else you want to make out of those leftovers that are still in your freezer. That rarely happens here on our homestead because we consume just about all the meat that we put away. So that doesn't happen much. Okay, we've got far enough along to where Kelly's filling jars now. So we'll show you the process of her doing that. We've got our peaches sitting over here in their acidic water bath in these jars. She's going to dump them out. The reason we're doing this is because we've already got acid, the fruit fresh, in the syrup. These were just to keep these peaches from going brown while they were waiting. So she refilled it going to dump it out again. And then she's going to go over here.
I'm doing 2 at a time.
You're doing 2 at a time now? All right. So refilled it, dumping it out. Now she's taking her hot syrup and putting it in the jars up to the appropriate headspace, which is just above that bottom shoulder on the jar there. And don't be alarmed when you're cold packing if the liquid doesn't get all the way over the fruit, because that fruit will settle down in the jar. Now you can see these jars, we've packed them pretty tight. I've got as much stuffed in there as I can. But that jar's not going to look like that when it comes out of the canner. So she's got them filled up. So now she's going to wipe the rims. And then she's already sterilized her lids, putting the lids on. Putting the rings on, just finger tight. You don't want to wrench them down. And then into the canner they go. Now we haven't dipped them all the way down into the water because we don't want any jars getting a head start, because they might overcook. We've got a rack in this canner that holds them up out of the water, and then once we get that full, we take the rack and we put it down into the water. Now it'll take a few minutes for the water to get back up to a rolling boil, because these jars going in aren't quite boiling. So the whole canner is going to have to get back up to a rolling boil, and that's where we will start our 35-minute timer. Now if you live anywhere from sea level to 1,000 feet, it would only be 30 minutes. We're doing 35 minutes because we're 2,000 feet here where we're at. Got our jars in the pot. You want about 1 inch of water over the top of your jars. So we're going to put the lid on here and wait till that comes back to a rolling boil, and then we'll start our 35-minute timer. Now the reason we're able to water bath this stuff instead of pressure canning is because it's a higher acid food. You can get by with a water bath. Any low acid foods, say like green beans or potatoes or something like that, those have to be pressure cans because they don't have the amount of acid in them. So we're going to get set up to do the hot pack of the next batch. So we've got leftover syrup in here. I'm going to measure how much I have. We figured out that the quart jars need about around 1.5 cups of syrup after they're filled with peaches. So we're going to figure out what we need for 10 jars. So 1.5 cups, 10 jars. That would be about 15 cups. We'll go probably a little over that. And I'm going to dump, when I put water in here, I'm going to put ice in the water and measure it. So say I fill this with ice and measure and put water in it up to 2 cups. We're still at 2 cups of liquid. So we'll cool this down when we add our water to where this is cold. And then we'll add our sugar, and we'll add our acid, and we'll slice our peaches right into this vessel being cold. And then once we're ready to go, we've got all of our peaches sliced, we'll turn the heat onto this thing. And you want to heat the peaches to where they're just heated through. That's all you want. peaches are warmed all the way through. So now we're going to start jarring these babies up. And you'll see as we jar them, they're probably going to fit together a little bit tighter than the cold packed peaches. So we're using a slotted spoon because we want to leave most of the liquid out at first. We'll pack in the peaches as tight as we can get them. Looks like we're going to need a few more. Then we put some liquid in. Alright, once we get that to the top, we take our little chopstick and we run down the sides because we want to get any air bubbles out of there that are down in there. Because unlike the raw pack, the air gaps in there aren't as big to let the liquid all the way in there. Push those peaches down in there a little bit. Now I'm going to top that up with the liquid. We'll put a lid on it, put it in the pot. Alright, we got our jars filled and placed in the canner. You can see the hot pack yielded less jars because there's more peaches in the jar. So instead of 10 jars, we've got 6 jars, and then I put 3 full jars of water in there. That way our water level will be correct. So we'll get these in the pot, we'll get it to a rolling boil. Now, being these are hot packed, they only have to process at our altitude for 30 minutes instead of the 35. So we'll come back when we pull these out of the canner and show you what these jars look like. Alright, we are done. It's 10:45 p.m. Been a long day. But you can see how these jars that are hot packed look a lot fuller than the cold pack jars over here. Boy, the smell of these peaches here in the kitchen brings back lots of memories back when we lived in California. We lived in dairy country, my family did, but we had friends that lived about 30 minutes north of us who lived where all the fruit and the almond trees were grown. And I remember in the summer we used to go visit them, and driving through the roads through those peach orchards, you could just smell those ripe peaches on the tree. And we'd make fresh homemade ice cream, and we'd cut up some of those fresh peaches and put in the ice cream. It was amazing. So we got our peaches done. We hope you enjoyed the video. So come on back and see us here at Mark Kelly's Farm if you want to learn how to do some stuff the old way. Stay safe, stay healthy. We love you guys. See you next time.